Let's first take a look at the game architecture. I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Basically, there are four major parts to the game. First of all, there's the game itself. This represents the controlling object that will say, hey, let's select this particular puzzle, let's output it, let's cut the puzzle pieces, all that kind of fun stuff. Then there is the table. The table will hold the actual jigsaw itself, which means that it will generate and work with all the different pieces. That's part number 3. And of course, the piece is the actual physical jigsaw piece. Finally, the game will also communicate with the user interface, and this is the browser. And the reason I did it this way is I wanted to be able to keep each of the objects as separate as possible so that I would be able to create unit tests for them. In this particular case, I could completely remove the user interface and deal just with the pieces, the table, and the game. And that allows me to test everything without having to worry about whether I have a DOM available or not. So the game architecture is very simple: the game, the table, the pieces, and the user interface. Now, what are the objects that are going to be available? Now, there are a bunch of different objects, but there are 3 main objects. The big ones are the table, the game, and the UI. And let's go through each one of these one at a time. The table itself is a container for all the pieces. And a piece is a piece. So you can think of it as if you put a real jigsaw puzzle on top of the table. The whole purpose of the table is to be able to hold the jigsaw puzzle and allow you to move the pieces around so that you can interact with the puzzle itself. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're going to have a table that will hold all the different pieces, and it will communicate with the game and communicate with the browser to be able to do whatever we need to do with all the different pieces. As mentioned before, the table contains all the different pieces, and it's very simple of the communications that we need to have between the table and the pieces. The table needs to be able to create pieces and to move the pieces. Now, why does the table move the pieces? Well, in reality, it is the UI or the browser that is moving the pieces. The browser will be communicating to the game. The game will come back to the table and say, hey, I've moved this piece from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner. Therefore, you need to move the piece. And then the table will say, okay, I will now physically move the piece onto the table and then report that everything is ready to go. All a piece really has to do to the table is basically say, hey, I've been created. That's it. There's really not a whole lot that the piece is going to communicate back up to the table. The real interface comes between the game and the table. The game has to be able to tell the table, hey, here's a new image, here's a cut, here's the number of pieces. I need you to cut the puzzle, I need you to shuffle the puzzle. Oh, and by the way, I need you to move the piece. Now, the table is going to be communicating back over to the game saying, basically, I have moved a piece for you. Here is the status of the jigsaw puzzle. And there's a couple of things that could occur there. For example, if the game has said, move to the upper left-hand corner, lower right-hand corner, and the piece is moved by the table could come back and say, hey, no change. What you reported back to me is true. That's where the piece is. Well, what if the UI drops that piece off the table? You take your hand and just knocked off that piece off the table. What's going to happen? Well, the table is going to reach back down there, pick it back off the floor, and put it back onto the table. That's what we call a position change. So that's one of the other options that you have for a piece. If it's out of bounds, we need to put it back in bounds. Well, what if a piece connects up with another one? We need to tell the game that so that the game can report to the UI to do something real funky with it, like, play a note or play something with it. And finally, if all the pieces are put together, the table needs to tell the game that, hey, the game is over with. There is nothing more for us to do. And that's really basically what the table is going to talk to about with the game. And once the game is finished talking to the table, it's also got to talk to the new UI. And this is where things get really complicated, for lack of a better term. The game, it will be able to, first of all, the game has to first of all tell the table, hey, I need you to draw this table. I need you to draw this piece. I need you to move a piece, because in case, the piece got moved again. I need you to draw the screen. I need you to change the state of the UI. So for instance, when we first start the game, a person can only do a new button or an exit game. They can't pause a game or they can't start a game because nothing's been selected. Or if the game is finished, you can't pause a finished game anymore, so we need to disable a finished button. Things like that. And the UI has to report things back over to the game, things like a new game, exit game, where they cancel the start of the pause, the drag and drop, continue the game, where they've selected an image, selected a cut, where they selected the piece count. All these different things, anything that happens within the UI has got to be reported back to the game so that the game will know what to do with it, whether to send it onto the table or process it itself. Next, we'll take a look at the flow of the game. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to view more videos. Click on the like button on this video and visit us at TheVirtuoid.com. Also, support us on Patreon, where you can get access to member-only videos. Links are down below. Again, thank you very much for watching, and keep on coding.